Greensleeves is one of the most well-known and sublime of old English folk songs. This particular arrangement by Sean Montgomery, which you'll find in issue 70 of Pianist magazine, is quite modal sounding, so the harmonies tend to be a little more vague. For example, rather than clear-cut triads like this, Sean has opted for less obvious harmonies. Now this makes for a more subdued and harmonically sparse approach, something that's important to remember regards the interpretation of this song. There's also a slightly unusual harmonic twist too in the interplay between the D and the D sharp in the melody, which implies a sort of major to minor feel. This harmonic shift indicated in the melodic line becomes a very distinctive and recognizable feature of the tune, giving an almost optimistic inflection to the end of the melody line. Just something to be aware of. Structurally, the arrangement falls into two parts, both repeated. Perhaps the second part can be considered more optimistic sounding in its own right, which suggests the feel should be a little more elevated. Indeed, the dynamic marking of mezzo forte suggests this. In terms of writing, this arrangement is essentially made up of three polyphonic parts, occasionally spilling over into four parts for the second section. Each of these parts is fixed in its purpose. The upper is always being the melody, the lowest line being the bass line, and the remainder providing harmonic support. So it's the upper part that you'll probably focus on most of the time. Now the melody lends itself very well to a legato approach, so keep the line smooth and even, especially the semiquavers, which should be played lightly and with a gentle lilt. Make sure they don't stick out, like so. Rather than now this is a bit extreme of course, but I'm sure you can hear what I mean. The left hand provides the remaining interest in essentially two parts, the bass or the root note, and then what could be considered almost a counter melody. Try playing it with the main melody but without the bass to have a clearer idea of the interaction between the two. So you can hear that the left hand provides more than just harmonic support. It's actually providing another level of melodic interest too. Now to bring out this counter melody, try playing the bass notes as staccato first of all and softly. So if we play just the left hand, now try just the left hand with the pedal and lean into the second and thumb notes, concentrating on this counter melody. We're looking to avoid overlapping, so be careful with your sustain pedal. Now if we add the right hand, we're looking to keep the volume level of the left hand just below the right hand. So you can see in terms of balance of parts what we should be looking to achieve. The middle section takes on a slightly different approach. This counter melody doesn't really stand out melodically. If anything, the bass notes become more interesting. So concentrate now on the relationship between the melody and the bass. Also, at bar 19, the occasional chord note has been added to the melody in the right hand. Be sure to keep those notes very quiet. Whilst pedalling can definitely help with the sustained feel of this piece, be careful with the melodic clarity. For example, in the second half of bar 3, the melody is just a semitone apart and could sound messy if you pedal over this section. We should always be aware of the effect of the sustain pedal and be critical of its usage. The tempo should be kept at a very regular pulse. The BPM is marked as a dotted crotchet equals 90. I personally wouldn't pull this tempo too much around. Keep it at a nice settled pace. If you have a digital piano, you'll have many sounds probably inside of that piano. The Roland HP 505 allows me to select flutes, strings, many different sounds, but it also allows me to split the keyboard. So I now have put a harp sound on my left hand, and in my right hand I put a flute. Just a bit of fun, but try something different. Being a traditional song, you'll find many recorded arrangements of Greensleeves if you're looking for more inspiration. For me, the most sublime is Vaughan Williams' Fantasia on Greensleeves. Well worth a listen.